Welcome along to the Matchbook Football Podcast. It's Champions League quarterfinals, second leg time. Adrian is very, very excited / nervous ahead of a big tie in the Bernabeu, which is where we'll start. But there is 4 ties up for grabs. Incidentally, there: Real Madrid, Arsenal, Villa versus PSG, Inter versus Bayern. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke, as I mentioned there. Join me as ever. Before we get going, though, just a quick reminder to those that haven't yet signed up to Matchbook and would like to maybe check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange, check out the benefits of a sportsbook with our bet builders, a little bit of both. Check out our new offer. It's on screen if you're watching on YouTube. Enter the bonus code POD50, that's POD50, and get £50 worth in free bets when you bet 50. It's our best offer we've had so far and well worth checking out. Full T's and C's on screen, or you can check out matchbook.com, but don't forget to enter the bonus code POD50 and just like, subscribe wherever you're following, watching or listening, and insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of the guys' picks, plenty of stuff there, well worth keeping an eye on how the guys do throughout the season on it in Matchbook Insights as well. But yeah, lads, let's just get straight into the opening prizes here. We will start with Real Madrid versus Arsenal. Arsenal, of course, 3-0 up from the first leg, but it still sets up this tie fascinating. Madrid are 172 in the 90-minute market. Arsenal are 5.2. The draw is 4.3. Both teams, the score is 165. Arsenal getting a 3-quarter goal start, and the Asian handicap and 3.5 is the total. Adrian, I've heard a lot of narrative like, oh, if Madrid score in the first 10 minutes, Arsenal under pressure. I don't know about you, mate, but if Arsenal go in 1-0 down at half time, I don't think I'll be able to watch the second half.
Well, I'm going to have to, because I'm commentating on it, so I can't duck out, I'm afraid. There could be some nervy moments. It's, Real Madrid at home are a dangerous animal, aren't they? And they're going to whoop the players up massively, aren't they? I'm hearing all sorts about what Real Madrid have got planned in terms of hyping up the atmosphere and the occasion. So look, Arsenal are going to have to be at their best, aren't they? They're going to have to be at the resilient best. They're capable of doing it. Obviously, in the Champions League this season, Arsenal have been incredibly solid. They've conceded 0.55 goals per game. We know about their record in the Premier League in terms of limiting teams to very, very low expected goals. So Arsenal are more than capable of going there and managing the game, and hopefully, from an Arsenal perspective, keeping Real Madrid at arm's length. But when you've got Mbappe and Vinicius and Bellingham and Rodrigo and others, you've always got a chance. Always got a chance. And Kylian Mbappe, I thought, was outstanding in the first half at Emirates Stadium. He faded, as did Real Madrid, but he looked incredibly sharp, incredibly dangerous, and I think he's more than capable of stepping up here. Look, he's been directly involved in eight goals for Real Madrid in 8 Champions League knockout stage games against English sides. So when the English sides face Real Madrid at this level, at this stage of the competition, he invariably does step up. 7 of those 8 goal involvements are goals. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Mbappe got on the score sheet. I'd expect Real Madrid to score. They've scored in 18 home games in a row since Barca went there and tanked them 4-0. They score lots of goals at home. We all know that, and it might be a stretch for Arsenal to keep what would be, by the way, a 4th consecutive clean sheet against Real Madrid. Only ever played them 3 times. Haven't leaked one yet. Hand on heart, I'd love to see it, but I think Real Madrid will score in the game. So yeah, let's see. In terms of my pick here, I do like both teams to score. So I've bigged up Real Madrid's chances of scoring. But anyone that saw the first leg will know that Arsenal can cause them plenty of problems, lots of problems. Obviously, 3 amazing goals. It was just such a delight to be there. But Arsenal had other chances as well, and they'll create, I think, in this game. And Real Madrid don't keep very many clean sheets. It's as simple as that. They are vulnerable at the back. We saw it. 11 of the last 12 at the Bernabeu in all competitions have seen both teams score land. And I think with Arsenal knowing that 1 goal means that Real Madrid have to get 4 just to take it to extra time, that will be big on the priority list for Mikel Arteta. He won't, I don't think, park the bus and play for a 0-0. He will manage the game, but but I think they need to carry a threat. Because the weakness of Real Madrid is at the back, so they have to step on it. And I think they're good enough to score here. Arsenal average more than 2.5 goals a game in this season's Champions League. So yeah, my selection here is both teams to score, absolutely, as it was in the first leg, which didn't come in, but it probably should have done. Real Madrid did have a few chances. And I'm going to pair it with Mbappe to score. And that comes out at a nice price of 2.6. I think the 1.6-ish on both teams to score becomes a 2.6 for Mbappe to score any time. And if Real Madrid are going to score, which I'm fairly confident they will, then I think it might come through Kylian. So I think Arsenal will progress. I'm confident. But I'm going to steer clear of that with my selection.
Okay, both teams to score and Mbappe to score the goal or one of the goals from Madrid. 2.6 for Adrian. Now, Adrian said he doesn't expect Arteta to completely go with that park the bus approach. Do you at all? Is there any temptation for Arteta to do something outrageous like 11 men behind the ball for the whole game? Or is he right? Do we have to do Arsenal need to carry something going forward?
I think you do have to find a balance, but it wouldn't be completely unexpected if he did, because Arsenal will be confident in their defensive structure and systems to shut any side out, as they showed in the first leg that they can do to Real Madrid. But obviously, with that sort of carrot, as Adrian said, to score, and Real Madrid then requiring 4 just to get to extra time, I think it's good enough. And I think the way in which the match might play out might benefit them then in that sense. We know Real Madrid can be so electric, so dangerous on the counter-attack and in transitions. Well, they'll have to be the sort of proactive team on this occasion. They'll have to get forward and try and score goals. And I think that will give Arsenal opportunities themselves in counter-attacks and transitions. And I saw a wonderful stat that might help put you guys at ease a little bit going into this match. But Arsenal, the last time, the only time they've conceded 3 goals or more in a game in the last 700 days or so, came against a side who could be playing League One football next season, Luton Town. So Arsenal don't concede more than 2 goals often. But obviously this is Real Madrid away in the Bernabeu, Champions League knockout tie. We've seen this story before. Hell of a performance from Arsenal in the first leg, night and day really compared to what they produced against Bayern Munich 12 months ago. I know there were a few sort of nervous moments early on with the under-hit passes and misplaced passes, and Mbappe did look like a man on a mission in that first 45 minutes. But once they settled, I thought they were very impressive and deserving winners. The concerns I had pre-match at centre-half, I thought Kior did everything right, really. And in attack, Marino finished brilliantly for that 3rd goal. So you've 2 outstanding set-piece goals to complement them, and the second was just ridiculous from Rice, really. And that the underlying data suggested 3-0 was generous. The eye test said it probably could have been 1-0, 2-0 really in Arsenal's favour. 3 was probably the cherry on top, really. But the XG values of Declan Rice's both of his free kicks landing were 0.04 and 0.06, and the likelihood of him scoring both comes in as a 435 to 1 shot. So a bit of fortune going Arsenal's way in that sense. But the key area for me there was the midfield with Rice and Partey just dominating it, and the difference. Madrid missing Tchouaméni, opting for Modric there instead of Valverde and moving him to right back. I think that was a rare misstep from Carlo Ancelotti. I'm sure he'll try to rectify it here, but Camavinga's banned. Tchouaméni will come back in. Ceballos is doubtful still. They want to play him, but not sure whether he's 100% fit. So either way, I'd expect Lucas Vazquez to start at right back and potentially use Valverde's energy in midfield to give Madrid a bit more of a foothold there. But there's still no Mendy at left back either. So you've got Alaba or Fran Garcia up against Saka. So plenty of food for thought there for Real Madrid, who, yeah, we know they're no strangers to a dramatic turnaround, but they've never experienced this before, trading 3 goals going into the second leg. But I thought Jude Bellingham said something very interesting, didn't he? Post-match, he said, there's one place where crazy things can happen. It's our house. And you just wonder if they can get that early goal or that first half goal you talk about there, Dan, what it might do to both sets of sides and the mentalities going into this sort of second half. But yeah, interesting to see where the prices go here. Madrid 172 to win on the nose. The market moved majorly against them last midweek. We talked about Arsenal being 2.35, 2.4 going into the first leg. They went off almost odds on And the market has been against Madrid for the most part in the big matches that matter in Europe. There's also been a bit of a bias towards the Premier League clubs and moves coming in for English teams in the last sort of 24 hours, 48 hours before kickoff. So wouldn't be too surprised if Real Madrid drifted a little bit before the match on Wednesday. But yeah, as I say, in theory, this should suit Arsenal. You're not facing a low block defence. You're facing a side that's going to come at you. It negates, I think, a lot of Real Madrid's strengths of playing in transitions. It does allow Arsenal to play with a bit more flexibility. But ultimately, they're 3-0 up. They don't need to go and win this match. So I've no real interest in backing them in any sort of handicap start or even on the nose. So the obvious play for me here was to also back both teams to score, but combine it with Real Madrid double chance. I can't see them losing home and away against Arsenal. They'll be eager to sort of right those wrongs, and they'll probably just fall short, but I think they'll give it a right good go. So both teams to score and Real Madrid double chance comes in at 1.8, and I think that's a fair angle of attack.
Okay, both the guys expecting a decent game for the second leg in the Bernabeu. If we combine the two guys' selections here into our £10 money back as a free bet if it loses podcast, Bet Builder, Madrid double chance, both teams to score, Mbappe to score a goal, 2.9, just under 2-1 for that. That's £10 money back as a free bet. Just literally put that into your Bet Builder and check it out on insights.matchbook.com. Hit the crossbar with under 4.5 goals costing us in Newcastle, Manchester United, but the free bets do get to the customers there this morning, so a little bit of relief there. Let's move on to the second game here. It's a pity this is 3-1 now, but still a fascinating time. Villa at home to PSG. Villa are 3.4 currently in the 90-minute odds. PSG 2.18. The draw close to 3-1 on Matchbook, 3.95. Both teams to score, yes, 162. Villa getting a quarter goal head start at 2.08 and 2.5 is the total. Adrian, I mean, PSG probably full value for their 3-1 win, but you just felt Villa were going to dig in and get a result. From a tactical aspect, because I know you love this sort of stuff, I was surprised Ollie Watkins was left on the bench for as long as he was. Thought Rashford did okay at times, but other times looked disinterested. Where were you on that? And I presume we're expecting him to come in for the second leg.
Yeah, I would have played him, put it that way. But yeah, I think he's not in favour at the moment with Unai Emery. Ollie Watkins, he is sport for choice compared to how he's been in recent times. It used to it was Watkins or Duran, wasn't it? But it's now got Asensio and Rashford and Marlon, etc. So yeah, he's got options. But yeah, I would expect Watkins to be involved in the second leg, and he has been their talisman over and over again, hasn't he? And on this their biggest night, I think it would be a mistake maybe not to start him. That third goal was a killer. I don't think you could argue against that. But also, in my opinion, it was a warranted goal from PSG. It's another really stellar performance from them. I do really like the way they come at teams. They sort of lure you on, they keep it, and then bang, they go through the lines and they're at you really, really quickly. They obviously the wingers are terrific. Kvaratskhelia, Doué, Rich Barcola coming off the bench. They've got so much in their armoury to hurt Villa. And my assessment ahead of the first leg was that they'd have too much for Villa, too much quality, too much class. I didn't think the fullbacks at Villa were quite good enough at that very elite level. And I think that kind of did happen in the game. Matty Cash really struggled in particular, and Disassi when he came on. So is Villa Park going to change things that much? That's the question for me. PSG were awesome at Anfield as well, weren't they? So they proved they can go to a difficult environment and stay cool and play their game and play on the counter if they have to. So yeah, I make them real heavy favourites to progress, even though Villa got home advantage here. I just think that PSG have too much firepower. They've scored at least 2 goals, PSG, in 13 of their last 16 away games in all competitions. It's 17 away games since PSG blanked. So, I would absolutely fancy them to score. But Villa have got a chance as well of finding the back of the net. They've got to go for it. They've got a lot of firepower, as we just said. There'll be a brilliant atmosphere there. And I think they're capable of scoring again, as they did in the Parc des Princes. They've scored in 4 of their 5 home games in the Champions League this season, Villa. They've actually scored in 19 of their last 20 home games at Villa Park in all competitions. So it's very, very rare for Aston Villa not to find the back of the net at least once. 15 of those 20 though saw both teams to score land. So yeah, not too many clean sheets, and that's where I'm going with this. It's another both teams to score for me. I can absolutely see that happening, but I'm going to lean with PSG and do what we did. We'll do what Mark did in the last game and go with Paris Saint-Germain double chance and both teams to score. So yeah, a lot of different results there. On the slate, it comes out even money 2.0. I think they're too good to get beaten here, PSG. That's my take on it. And for the reasons outlined, I do think both teams to score is a pretty strong selection here.
Okay, yeah. Adrian, strong on the both teams to score angle, but also PSG being just too good for Villa. Mark, give Villa a squeak in Villa Park, second leg. There were moments in that first leg where you thought, okay, there's something there for Villa in that against that PSG defense, maybe even from set pieces.
Yeah, to win the game, absolutely, they got an opportunity, but to qualify, it's going to be very, very difficult to overhaul PSG from this position. That late goal was a real killer for those for their hopes and credentials, really. So, yeah, another very impressive performance from PSV. 29 attempts in total, 19 from inside the penalty area. They've now scored at least 3 goals in 6 of the last 8 Champions League games. Their only defeat in 30 was that first leg loss against Liverpool when they were absolutely dominating the Reds, and they head to Birmingham having won 13 on the spin away from home across all competitions. They get Marquinhos back from suspension, no new injury concerns. They're pretty much at full strength, and as we said before the first leg, there's now a real consistency about them, not just in performance levels, but also in selection and tactical terms as well from Luis Enrique. So if you are going to be pro Villa and looking for positives from that match in Paris, I think you could say of the 29 shots conceded, they only conceded a total XG of 195. When if you concede sort of 30 odd shots, you expect that figure to be a lot higher. It's about 0.07 XG per shot, and they only let in or they only allowed 1 big chance in that first leg. Villa themselves had 2. So there is going to be an opportunity for them. Villa Park will be rocking. Their record at home is immense. Obviously, they'll hark back to beating Bayern Munich, holding Juventus. They've only lost 5 times in 40 home Premier League or European fixtures going back to the start of last season, and only one of which occurred this year, which was Arsenal way back in August. And they have scored in 36 of those 40 games as well, with PSG conceding in 8 of the last 11 across all comps. Yeah, I mean, it's an area where Villa are absolutely stocked at the moment, isn't it, in forward areas? The ability they have to change the game and bring players off the bench, as they did at the weekend against Southampton. I do expect them to score. I do expect them to trouble PSG, but defensively, that's always been an issue. And 9 of the last 10 Premier League or Champions League visitors to Villa Park have scored, includes the likes of Ipswich, Leicester and Celtic. So similarly, quite happy to get both teams to score on side here. I'm going to package it with under 4.5 goals for 2.1. Just 2 of Villa's Champions League and 3 of their Premier League games have beaten that line across the whole season so far. Only 3 PSG games in this competition have escalated into 5-goal games as well. And we saw how the match at Anfield unfolded too, actually. They're much more capable of managing games now under Luis Enrique. There's a real sort of maturity about them despite their age profiles, and they're humble. They're willing to put the dog work in. They'll also be well aware of the club's previous kind of disasters in these kind of situations too. So I'm expecting a very professional approach. I was slightly tempted, I'll be honest, to back Villa with a start here or something along those lines. But yeah, I'm not always excited to back a team at shortish prices away, especially with a 2-goal lead, however good they are. But I'm just aware of something Unai Emery said at the weekend, where he sort of hinted that the Premier League and finishing as high as they can in the Premier League is going to be their best avenue to qualify for the Champions League again next season. And Villa have quite a difficult run in, actually, which starts at the weekend on Saturday at home to Newcastle. I'm not saying they're going to be prioritising that or not going all in on this game, but it did sort of make me think twice really about getting them on side with the start. So I preferred the goal option, take the result out of the equation, back both sides to score, and hopefully there won't be 5 or more goals as well. It's 2.1, which I think is nice odds against price to have a crack at.
Okay, I hadn't heard those quotes. That's would send alarm bells, to be honest, for this game for Villa fans anyway. But yeah, lean towards Adrian with PSG double chance of both teams to score, but 2 good options to get goals on side in that game. We'll move on to Inter versus Bayern. Inter, of course, leading this 2-1 from the first leg. Inter 274 underdogs at home in the 90-minute market. Bayern 262. The draw is 11-4 on Matchbook. Both teams to score, yes, 167 Draw no bet is the handicap, and 2.5 is the total, 1.8 for the overs. So yeah, Mark, take us away with this one. Inter got a fantastic result away to Bayern. I mean, how does this game set up from a Bayern point of view? I mean, the pressure's massively on them to try and produce a performance to get a result here.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult, isn't it? This is the match or the first leg that kind of caused me the most frustration, actually. Sort of hindsight being a wonderful thing, isn't it? But all the warning signs were there pre-match, and sort of opted to take a pro-Bayern approach despite the injury issues in the first leg, and Inter looked like the obvious kind of value underdog, really. But yeah, I was suckered into their record in Munich, and also the way in which they rose to the occasion against Leverkusen in the last round. And look, in fairness to Bayern, they might have lost a game last week, but they felt the fine margins went against them. It was their first home Champions League loss since April 2021. Harry Kane spurned a glorious chance in the first half when he hit the outside of the post, when he almost always puts that opportunity away. And they did rack up 20 shots, forced Jan Sommer into 6 saves, generated 2.3 expected goals, created 5 big chances. They probably didn't deserve to lose on the balance of play, but yeah, ultimately the players missing made a big difference, and Inter showed what a resilient bunch they can be, and how clinical they can be in forward areas, because Lautaro's finish was just absolutely exceptional, and they managed the match really well, as Simone Inzaghi teams do tend to be. And he himself said afterwards he felt his side were pretty smart in their game plan, because they beat Bayern's press on both occasions to score goals. And obviously you need a little bit of luck defensively on your side too, but they were able to then rest 7 of their starters on Saturday against Cagliari, withdraw the others pretty early too, with this match in mind. And you know, as much as I hate to kind of dig into national stereotypes, but what we have here is an Italian coach, an Italian team defending a lead from the first leg at home. I don't think they're going to be going all out to sort of put Bayern Munich to the sword here. I think they'll adopt a very similar approach of contain, counter, and look to take their opportunities when they come. And you know, I don't think they'll have to work too hard, because Bayern can be a calamity at times defensively. And I think Alphonso Davies is an enormous miss in defence. Obviously, his recovery pace is pretty pivotal for Bayern, who like to play a high line. So I think there will be opportunities for Inter to extend that advantage. Not that they'll go pushing and looking for them, but yeah, and obviously Musiala's absence as well. He's the one player with that sort of ingenuity in tight central areas who can unlock a defence too. Without him and without Alphonso Davies, I do think they are damaged. So yeah, we saw in the first leg with Kim and Eric Dyer at centre back, it's an area of weakness in terms of not having too much pace. Without Alphonso Davies to kind of mop up the danger, it does weaken them. So especially in an environment like the San Siro. So yeah, I expect Inter can and probably will score. And if they do score first, I think it's probably game over, because I just can't see how they will allow Bayern the opportunity to kind of overturn a 2-goal deficit. So don't expect it to be a thriller-minute kind of match. I think Bayern will be the aggressors, will be proactive, probably will get on the score sheet themselves, in fairness, with the amount of quality they have. But quite happy to have Inter on side in a low-scoring-ish match. It's 2.25 for Inter double chance and under 3.5 goals. And I think that's a nice price considering.
Okay. And Adrian, you've landed on the same selection here as well?
Yeah. For me, it was easily the standout. The price is good, isn't it? 2.25, I think, offers great value for an Inter team that's you know, up there with Arsenal as the best defence in the Champions League this season. I mean, statistically, you know, they've conceded 0.27 goals across their 11 Champions League games per game. It's quite remarkable, really. So many clean sheets, particularly at home, where they've got, you know, a fantastic record. Conceded 1 goal in their 5 at the San Siro in the Champions League this season. It did ride their luck against Arsenal. I remember that game; they got a bit lucky with a penalty, and it was all Arsenal. And yeah, they sort of, but what I found in that game was that they have an amazing resilience and fortitude. They love defending, and you know, it was very sort of classic Italian, really, the way that they went about their work. And I do think, as Mark said, that they'll bring that nous to the table and try and nullify a Bayern team that's obviously miles better going forward than they are at the back. I don't know whether they've got some players back and available this week, but their back four last week was pretty weak, and I think that is an issue for them. I'm just not sure they've got the minerals really to go there and overturn this deficit, particularly in defence. Company as well, good coach, but for me not at the same level as Inzaghi. Clearly inexperienced, but maybe tactically as well. The Inter double chance side of this, I really fancy it. I was looking at this. You have to go all the way back to September 2023 for the last team that weren't AC Milan to win at the San Siro against Inter. That was Sassuolo. The only team that have beaten them since September 2023 are Milan, who obviously play at the ground anyway, and they've beaten them twice during that period. So visitors don't tend to get much change at this stadium. It would be a heck of a result if Bayern were to actually win in 90 minutes. So Inter double chance for me is a no-brainer, and the under 3.5 goes without saying, really, given how solid Inter are. I think that tactically they'll try and kill this game and manage it. And I think that in terms of game management, they're probably the strongest team left in this competition. So Inter double chance and under 3.5 really leapt off the page.
Okay, we'll lock that in as the podcast selection and move on to our final game. Dortmund versus Barcelona. Tough game here in terms of trying to decide what to bet on, because Barcelona lead the leg 4-0. Dortmund 4.0 on the 90-minute market. Barcelona 1.91. The draw 4.3. Both teams score 151. The Asian handicap line sees Dortmund get a half-goal head start. That's 2.06 effectively on double chance. 3.5 is the total. So yeah, Mark, not often you would take an over 3.5 goal line given just how many goals you need to score, stating the obvious. But you are confident there's going to be a few goals in this game.
Yeah, I think it will be goal heavy. This is probably the least attractive betting proposition of the midweek card, I'd say, with the score of 4-0 and Niko Kovac, the Dortmund coach, almost kind of waving the white flag already and sort of pretty much saying he's got no chance of qualifying. So it's just a bit of an interest play, really. But yeah, Dortmund, they just continue to be one of Europe's biggest mysteries. I saw someone compare them to Spurs in midweek, but Spurs, without kind of getting the aggro or the backlash that Tottenham tend to get whenever they put in a stinker. And last week, Kovac went away to Barcelona and just fielded a really sort of needlessly attacking lineup with the midfield three, all sort of front foot players, and they got completely overrun. The back four couldn't cope without the protection, and understandably, Barcelona's front three just had a field day, really. And the thing is, Dortmund did have their moments. Guirassy missed a glorious chance at 1-0. Gittins shot wide when he was well placed, and Araujo to make two really good, excellent sort of double blocks late on as well. And Hansi Flick said himself that his team made far too many mistakes. And yeah, it could have been a different scenario for Dortmund. But interestingly, Kovac asked his players before the Klassiker at the weekend what system they wanted to play for the match, and the players voted for a three at the back, and they put in a much, much better and assured performance. Schlotterbeck, the best centre-back, is out for the season, but Sula came in, played very well, and they just defended excellently. And he actually started Sally Oshkan and Pascal Gross, who was suspended for the first leg, in front of the defence. So there was much more protection there, and they still had that threat in forward areas and earned a really creditable 2-2 draw at Bayern. So now European qualification is still very much up for grabs for Dortmund domestically, but that is obviously going to be the priority. And as I say, Kovac all but conceded the tie at the weekend, saying to the media that while his team won't lie down, it's going to be very unlikely that they can pull it off. So the Dortmund supporters won't allow their team to just sit back and sort of play this game out. They will expect a front foot effort. And I think if they are proactive and if they can be front foot, they will cause Barcelona problems, because Barca still have issues defensively themselves. Alejandro Balde, the left back, is now injured, and there's not much cover there at all. So there will be weaknesses. They did just what was required really at the weekend at Leganés, this match being the sort of the key. But there's also talk that Hansi Flick might rest and rotate his players, being 4-0 up, and with the big game against Celta Vigo at the weekend in mind as well. So again, they're too short to support odds-on quotes, leading 4-0 away from home. So I don't think there's any need to sort of be pro-Barca here. Instead, I'll swerve that. I'll back goals over 3.5. We've had a 3-2 and a 4-0 between these two teams already this season. And if you look at Barca's season, they've played 45 matches. 27 of those have gone over 3.5 goals. That's a 60% hit rate. Yes. And here we've basically got a game where both teams have, I wouldn't say a huge amount to play for, but the pressure's kind of off a little bit here. They can go out and have some fun. There's a lot of good attacking players, and I think there's a lot of weaknesses and question marks about the defence too. So odds against 2.2 for another over 3.5 goals. It's just a fun one to cheer on, not one I'd be sort of backing with a real sort of force.
Okay, Mark mentioned the Barcelona price, Adrian, 191, but you can boost that. There are ways to boost that price into something more backable.
Yeah, and that's the way I've looked at it. But I do take Mark's point. When a team doesn't need to win, I understand if you wanted to swerve backing them. But yeah, I'm kind of coming at this from the similar angle in that it's the hardest of the four to really have a strong play on. I just think that Barcelona are a really good team, and I think they've broken Dortmund's hearts, and for that reason, I think that they can do the double on them. Where I slightly disagree is that I don't know how much fun they'll have. It's one of those where they won't want this to become an end-to-end game, Barcelona, because of the nature of their lead. They're going to want it to be controlled. So if I were them, I'd certainly be looking at. And I know it's not really Hansi Flick style, but I think that they don't have that urgency to go and hurt Dortmund over and over again. Even though I think they've got too much quality. To mess things up. I'm looking at Barcelona to win an under 4.5 goals. So that's where the big jump happens. You go from 1.91 to 2.4. Why do I think it'll be under 4.5? I think because Barcelona will manage the game. Because Barcelona actually away from home have sort of got into a nice little habit of just doing enough, as Mark said, like they did at the weekend. I think 4 of their last 5 away games in all competitions, Barcelona have seen under 2.5 goals. They're able to close things up and just tick along and win the game without overexerting themselves. And that is kind of how I see it this game. I just think Dortmund, got nothing to lose. I think they'll be very wary of getting battered again in front of their own fans. So I think that they won't go gung ho, in my opinion. It'll be a sort of face-saving exercise from them, but I think they'll fall short. So yeah, Barcelona and under 4.5 for me. 8 of Dortmund's last 10 home games have gone under 4.5 as well. And by the way, Barca's away record is awesome. 13 away wins and 3 draws since they last got beat on the road, which was November the 10th. So lots of reasons I think to still fancy Barca, even if they're in a ridiculously comfy position.
Okay, we'll lean that way if we're looking for a bet here. Barcelona to win an under 4.5 goals, 2.4 in it. Mark selection over 3.5, 2.25. Insights.matchbook.com. You can get a full recap of all the guys' picks there. We'll move on to long shot time. And Mark, I'm looking forward to this. This is both teams to score. We do these maybe 2 or 3 times a year. You just say sometimes it's you have such a massive value in your head that this is a really good bet, and other times it's like, oh, struggling for long shot, but I like both teams to score in all 4 games. Therefore,
I've made the case for goals in 3 of the 4 games we've covered. The only match I haven't involved the Bayern Munich going to Inter Milan. Bayern obviously trailing, playing away from home. They almost always guarantee goals for themselves in some way or form. They've got so much attacking firepower. You'd expect them to cause Inter problems, as they did in the first leg, but didn't manage to translate that into more than just the 1 goal. So wouldn't be too surprised at all to see BTTS cop at the San Siro, based at what's at stake. So 2 of last week's 4 ties did see both teams score. Dortmund really ought to have scored in Barcelona. So it was only really Real Madrid who failed to fire. But again, the situation this week suggests that they can make amends. And the best, this bet has actually landed in 9 of the last 12 Champions League quarterfinal second legs over the last 3 seasons. 3 or 4 matches in each of those seasons landed for both teams to score. So the fourfold hasn't copped yet, but it's 6.09 for it to land this time around. And I think there's a fair argument to suggest that perhaps this time we get 4 from 4. So happy to be with the BTTS fourfold in the Champions League second legs this week, 6.09.
Okay, and Adrian taking on Spurs. I mean, it's probably a referendum on Ange Postecoglou at Spurs, and you don't think it's going to end well?
I don't know. I've sort of bent the rules on this Champions League pod to include game from the Europa. I mean, they're nicely set, aren't they? All of the games, really, particularly the ones involved in the English clubs. And you couldn't make a strong case for United or Spurs to progress, really. I don't fancy Spurs, I have to say, which is why I'm going to oppose them here. Eintracht Frankfurt. I mean, they did have a few chances, didn't they, Tottenham, in that first leg? and Frankfurt very much played on the counter attack, but at home, very intimidating atmosphere. With a proven track record actually in this competition, you know, done really well in it in recent years. Frankfurt, I think they might have too much for as what I see, a brittle Spurs team that's losing a little bit of faith in Ange Postecoglou. I know that he rested a few at Molineux, but yeah, conceding 4 there is poor. And I've watched quite a few of Spurs games in Europe this season. I've worked on them, and rubbish really away from home, I have to say. Defensively, they've been carved open for fun in most of these away games. I mean, the Galatasaray one really stands out. Hoffenheim as well. They were involved in 3 tours against Hoffenheim and Galatasaray as well, of course. So yeah, I'm looking at Frankfurt to win and over 3.5 goals from a long shot. It comes in at 5.5. Right. I think that a lot of people will fancy Frankfurt here, and all we need is 4 goals. Now, Spurs are always worth a goal. They're attack-minded, as we know. But can Frankfurt score 3? I think they can. I really do. They beat Ajax 4-1 in the last round at home. 10 of Frankfurt's 22 home games this season have gone over 3.5, which I think is a pretty high percentage. 5 of the last 10 Spurs games on the road have gone over 3.5. That's half. And look, Spurs on their travels just aren't good, are they? They've lost 13 of their last 20, including all of their last 4. I like Ekitike, the striker, who's sort of linked with a number of clubs. I think he could be someone that really hurts Spurs in this game. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at the 3-1er here. It could be a 3-2er. It could be 4. Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, so Frankfurt and over 3.5 for me.
Okay, that comes in at 5.5, and you didn't see that off-screen. Mark was laughing away to some of that analysis on Spurs there, Adrian. So he's loving
Go on, why?
Away from home, they've been rubbish.
I mean, it's insightful stuff, isn't it? But it was the word that sort of just sprung to mind. But I've sat through the games, and they've just looked a soft touch and very open. And I think if they're open in this game, in this sort of intimidating arena, with the morale as low as it is, I think they could get carved open. But yeah, let's see.
It should be an exciting game. I mean, we take no pleasure in Spurs' demise this season, of course. However, I would genuinely love to see Spurs United in the Europa League final. I genuinely would love to watch
that. Anyone but United v Spurs for me.
That's fair enough, but I would just that the desperation in that game would just be an absolute all-timer. The Europa League, Mark. Adrian bent the rules a little bit for the Europa League, Mark, but you're going for the Premier League, really taking the mick here now.
Yeah, I didn't even ask you. I just put it in the sheet. But my best bet this midweek is Newcastle versus Crystal Palace. Both teams to score 175. It's on Wednesday night. Rearranged game for Newcastle after being in the Carabao Cup final. Playing a Palace side who could have been 3-0 up at Man City had Eze's goal been ruled onside in the first half on Saturday. They fell apart a little bit after that. Really missed Mark Gahey's leadership in defence. He'll be back at least after suspension at St James's Park, but it won't be easy with or without him because Newcastle are on a real roll right now. Thumping United on Sunday, had the luxury of fielding the same side for the 5th successive game, having Anthony Gordon come off the bench. Harvey Barnes has been brilliant. Jacob Murphy too. The midfield has been immense as well. They're really playing some brilliant football right now and moving forward at a rate of knots, really, and sort of closing in on that top 5 position. They're averaging 2 goals per game at St James's Park in the Premier League. They've only been blanked twice at home in the league all season. Fully expect them to get on the score sheet here. But I think Palace have proven themselves as being a real handful in forward areas. 3 big chances created at Man City at the weekend, 1.8 expected goals. They've now scored in all bar 2 away games this season, but they've also managed only 2 clean sheets in 19 when facing sides inside the top 13 of the Premier League. So I think 175 on both sides to score would be my best midweek bet.
Okay, yeah. Tempted to add that into the Champions League 4-fold for sure. Why not make it a 5-fold? You can do multiples on Matchbook Betting Exchange. Adrian, we've covered this already, so we won't have to spend too long. Inter double chance under 3.5 goals, your best bet of the week.
Yeah, I said, didn't I, earlier that this one really leapt off the page for me. I'll repeat the stat that really makes me feel that Inter won't get beaten in the game, and that's that you have to go all the way back to September 2023 for any team outside of Milan to go to the San Siro and win, and that was Sassuolo. So yeah, AC Milan have beaten them twice there, but that is also their home pitch. Visitors don't tend to get much change. Champions League, they've been brilliant at home, conceded just once all season, and given that they've got this advantage, I know that they are not going to be expansive here. They're going to take their time over everything. They're going to kill the game where they can, and if they do score, they'll shut up shop. And I don't think there's a better team left in the competition at that aspect of the game than Inter Milan. I just don't think Bayern quite have what it takes at the very highest level this season. Certainly not defensively. So yeah, Inter double chance, under 3.5 goals, 2.25.
Okay, insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' selections. Busy week in the Champions League, but very much looking forward to a couple of those fascinating ties in particular, and hopefully the guys have steered you in the direction of a winner or two. We'll be back later in the week to preview the Premier League action, but do enjoy this week's Champions League action on Matchbook. If you are having a bet, make sure it enhances that enjoyment of the viewing. But as ever, as we always say in the podcast, please do so responsibly. We'll chat to you later in the week. Enjoy the Champions League. Bye-bye.